Vi står her på Christiania foran Alice-butikken sammen med Immortal Technique, og han er kommet til Danmark, så vi har tænkt os at stille ham et par relevante spørgsmål nu, hvor vi har manden i huset. The first question is about the surveillance program and the NSA. How much should we as European citizens be concerned about the surveillance program?
Well, it's been and done, obviously everyone knows, with the conjunction of foreign spy services as well. I think something that people don't seem to understand is that it's not something new. People are saying, oh my God, this is happening now. What's happening now is the story that's breaking of how it's been happening for years and years and years. And that plenty of other spy agencies have been involved in it, and information has been shared about foreign European citizens. In the same way, the phone hacking scandal that Rupert Murdoch's company was famous for doing in London affected people in America. How can you think it doesn't? They were trying to steal information about 9/11 victims, which is disgusting. And they were trying to hack their phones, trying to get access to people. So if they're doing that and they're willing to do it for a news story, what makes you think they're not going to be willing to do it
Should
for
people be worried
control? Well, I mean, like I just said, it's always been happening. Whether they should be worried, I leave up to them. I can't tell you how to feel, right? You don't have to be scared. You have to be aware. That makes you not be like so fucking scared of your own shadow that you start pretending to people on the phone. Yeah, they're listening, so then you just don't talk about personal things like that in front of them. Try writing somebody a letter again rather than think you can talk to them by Skype or that all the time, because now they have a new program which was like I think it was like Operation Chess Work or some shit like that on Skype, where they basically had the ability to listen in on people's phone. So now they're listening on everything. But it's not, I don't say this for people to be paranoid. I say it for them to be aware of the growing amount of contention that exists. And there's no way that it affects us and it doesn't affect you, because we're spying on every other government in the world. If we're spying on our own people, if we're spying on our own people, what the fuck makes you think we're going to hesitate for a second to spy on someone from this country? We don't care.
Okay. The second question is about the Arab Spring, and we've seen a lot of uprisings in the Arab communities, the Arab countries, Muslim countries, what you want to call it, and we've seen also a rise in power of Muslim Brotherhood. Do you see any connection, like, with the Arab Spring and the Muslim Brotherhood getting so much power?
Right. Well, I mean, I think when we look at the Arab Spring, we have to notice that there were several people involved that weren't sanctioned by the United States government, that weren't sanctioned, that didn't have everybody who, I said it before, through the agreement of Sykes-Picot that ended or precluded World War I, that there were certain people who were given a crown and had carved out areas by Europe, which was at that particular time was carving up the Ottoman Empire as the sick man of Europe. So at this particular time, it created these different countries and said to these kings, you'll rule it, but we're going to give you finances, we're going to control the banking system, we're going to control this. And finally it came to terms to a time when, the people that had built their empires up by snatching power and not by inheriting it from the crown, no royals, people that had taken it. Colonel Gaddafi, the general in Egypt. I think no. I mean, the individuals that came into Tahrir Square were rebelling against a government that was a military regime, right? It was not propped up by a monarchy. The King of Jordan is a monarchy, right? He was propped up. So tell me, how are we creating democratic regimes when all the regimes in some way, shape, or form are corrupt, and yet the only ones that we're keeping in power are the monarchy? Those are the big allies. Isn't that the most hypocritical thing? Isn't the biggest thing that's opposed to democracy or monarchy? What's the complete opposite of democracy? A one-man dictatorship, but this dictatorship is sanctioned by God, supposedly. Which I think modern people in the Muslim world, in the Middle Eastern world, don't even believe that. They can't. I think that they hang on to certain traditions and aspects of it, but I don't think the people themselves are naive enough to believe that Allah was not busy one day, so he decided to put Del into power in Jordan. They're not stupid people, you know what I mean? They're kept ignorant by a government that doesn't want to invest in education, that takes the infrastructure that it has from all of the other places that has corporations that do the same thing to Africa and Latin America that European companies did before.
But do you see the Muslim Brotherhood as the same
They're
product?
just another player in the game. Until they played every hand that they possibly can. And if they grow to displease the United States and England and other countries that are investing, they'll try and push them out of power as well, or make life difficult for them. But right now, they present probably a better alternative to them than whatever would come before that, you know what I mean, or come after that. They're looking at that as a way to cut their losses for whatever happens. And that gives them free range to put their hands into other places. But the bottom line being is they don't want to lose access to those resources. And I said that before at the show when I said I had a conversation with a very racist person from out here in Scandinavia before I came here. He was the leader of some stupid organization, I don't even know. But he was saying, oh, well, you don't understand the burden that foreigners have in Denmark and in Sweden and in Norway. And I said, well, let me ask you something. You want to kick those people out of this country? Let me ask you a question. How many of your companies, how many of your corporations are in the Middle East and in Africa bleeding those countries dry and taking those resources? If you want those people to get out of this country, then why don't you get your companies and your corporations the fuck out of their country? We'll see who loses more money. You need those people here and you to be a part of this society, and you need to have access to those resources because you built an economy that was not sustainable. You showed it as being a better system than communism, but it's not. All it is you changed the power dynamic and you gave smaller people a chance to pay into the system. But only the people that paid into the system the most and now can rejuvenate that money are the ones that are really, having a chance to succeed. The people that are still on the bottom don't have the upward mobility to say now now people are giving out loans, go to stores, but it's not built that way. Because those top positions have already been filled, and now that those people are up there, they don't want anybody else to follow them. You're going to see the same thing happen in Middle Eastern countries, where people say, now, wait a minute, I thought we had a revolution. Where do we have the success from this? The same thing in Africa. Africa country was once ruled by nothing but European leaders, but then they put African people in charge. Did it make the people any richer? No, because the African leaders stole that model from the Europeans, and the only ones that didn't, Patrice Lumumba and other individuals like that, were murdered purposefully because you didn't want to get in the way of them making money, which is, I'm sorry to say, it's anti-climax. It's an antithesis. It's an anti-climax to a revolution, and it's an antithesis to human development. Because a government's supposed to help human beings develop and be safer, not to oppress them so it can steal their resources and turn them into slaves and keep them ignorant. So I hope I don't see that history repeats itself, but it does when you don't read it.
So read history.
Last one. Let's go.
Last question is, I had to, but if I have to pick one, I know we have a lot of Afghan viewers, so why did you choose Afghanistan to invest?
Oh man.
Is there any particular reason?
I must say that the trip to Afghanistan for me was incredibly personal. I met people at Rock the Bells in 2006. They literally came up to me and they were like, listen, we need your help. And they've asked me very humbly, which is how when I went to Afghanistan I discovered all those people are. They're very humble people. You turned them into warriors when you went and radicalized them to fight against the Soviet Union. Most human beings are very calm and rational, calm people. Before there were European slave traders, before there were people that came from all parts of the world, West Africa wasn't a bunch of countries that were just people killing random children. Yes, there were wars, but their definition of slavery was different. These are people that have been changed specifically so that they can fit someone else's cause. So when I met them, they were very humble, very open. They said, we need your help. We have this program that we're starting. So I read about it, the Amin Institute, and they were one of the activists that actually had their, they had everything in order, everything organized. So when I went there, I thought to myself, look, if I can succeed in Afghanistan, then I can succeed anywhere. Because if I can make it through the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and all the rest of this shit, and the U.S. occupation, all these other countries, including Danish soldiers that I met that are in Afghanistan, which makes me wonder, what the hell are you doing there? That has nothing to do with anything in this country, and they've sold that war to you specifically. What do you think the Danish government's getting at? Access to natural resources. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be sending anybody there. I think that's what people don't get. It's still a war for money. It's still a war for profit. And I think when we went there, I discovered that the people, when they found out that I wasn't there with the government, they realized when I wasn't there with the military, they opened their arms to me. They said, oh, you're just a person that did this for your own good? And they was like, yeah, how'd you do it? And I said, well, I released an album called The Third World. We took a percentage of the proceeds. I found an organization called Made International, and I made it happen. And I told people, the message of the day is, don't look at me and think, oh, he's a hero. But no, that's not what I want people at all to get. I want you to go home and say, hey, man, if he can do this shit and travel to the other side of the world, then there's no excuse for me not be able to make a change in where I live. You know, maybe there's a broke neighborhood. Everywhere there's poor people, you know? Don't think because it's Denmark, there are poor people. I'm sure social government, I've seen people begging in the street. You can change that there. Or you could go to anywhere else in the world and help out. The people of this country used to take their boats to all parts of this European continent and kill, murder, rape, and steal people. So what they can do now to make up for it and to prove that they're part of this thing too is go everywhere and help everybody, which I see too. You know, I met a doctor yesterday when I sprained my ankle. He was like, oh yeah, you know, every summer I go do a mission in Bolivia. It's part of a Danish custom to be a doctor. You go places and help. Yeah, that's what society should be. But I mean, unfortunately, when you're stuck in that sort of scenario where you have people that don't see other individuals as human beings, you know, that's the problem. And I think that the mission in Afghanistan really was to humanize individuals and say, listen, I've been to Afghanistan. There are people that look like him in the north, white as hell. People that look like you, people that look like me. So it's definitely a collection of human beings. And one other thing that was an observation of mine is I can understand why those people can't be conquered, because they're willing to die and fight to the last man. And it's a very, very rare thing to find. But I'm just saying that that's what happens when people get so desperate. That's why they cannot be conquered. That's why they kicked out the British a long time ago. That's why they kicked out the Russians when the Russians were the strongest military and pretty much the most largest expansive military in the world. And now America, which has the strongest military, everybody knows, was unable to conquer it. Obama now is in peace talks with the Taliban. Not that the Taliban are representative of all that, but they represent the elements of Afghan society, because there are plenty of factions that, but at the same time, them and their willingness to die and fight absolutely to the death has the most fucked up downside of it. That even though they'll kick out every conqueror, every invader, they lose a generation of scientists, doctors. You know, that's one thing that I saw when we taped it in the Revolution of Immortal Technique, the movie we did on ViperRecords.com. We met people and I asked them, I was like, you're a doctor, you know what I mean? Or you're a social worker, you're a barber, what the hell did you do when all this is going down? He was like, I carried RPGs on my back, and I was like, so a doctor didn't make it, a scientist didn't make it, a history teacher that would have taught them that didn't make it, and their generation doesn't have that. I think that's what the people of Denmark fail to realize. Imagine if you're one generation of your entire people, like your fathers and mothers were just gone. And you grew up without that advice, without them telling you what was right and wrong, and you grew up in a fucking refugee camp. What do you think is going to happen? It's going to be a different type of society than you see now. And it was done purposefully to those people. And it's a repetition of what we see in the Middle East and Latin America and Africa, because it boils down to an imperialist government that wants to control people, rather than accepting human beings and saying, how can we better do this?
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Immortal Technique. From Harlem, New York, out here in Christiania, Copenhagen, Aarhus, came and shut it down. Thank you for having me here. Peace, Black Sheep Media.